Okay, we're just getting started here. Apologies for beginning just a little bit past the hour. Had a little technical thing that we had to sort out, and then but we're ready to get started. Want to welcome everybody out to another action-packed session of ConsensusCON. Glad to have you this morning. Hope you caught this morning's session. Our session this hour is entitled Ramping Implementation, really better entitled like Ramping Implementation to Warp Speed. We've got Adam Freeman here with us today, and super excited to have Adam because his approach to implementation at the Access Group has been pretty amazing. As a matter of fact, just briefly, his approach to ramping implementation at Access Group has heavily influenced our own kind of internal perception of what's possible when it comes to implementation of consensus. So really excited for this session. And we will be recording these sessions, and the links we're going to post in our Scaling Pre-Sales LinkedIn group. So the same place that you found the links for Demo Fest, if you were able to attend that. And ConsensusCON, if this is your first session of ConsensusCON, this user conference is really aimed at just kind of empowering our users and boosting success rates and helping everybody to get the most out of the platform of Consensus Demo Automation. We've got our lineup includes some of our top accounts, our most successful accounts, as well as industry experts, and very often the people that we have presenting really fall into both of those categories. I know Adam's presented at many different pre-sales conferences, and he's just a real treat to watch whenever we get the chance. A little bit about Adam. Adam is the leader of really an ultra high performance pre-sales team at the Access Group. And the Access Group, if you're not familiar with them, it's one of the fastest growing companies in the UK. And they embarked on a digital transformation of pre-sales at the start of 2020. And I'm happy to say Consensus has become a key tool in that journey. That transformation has supported business growth of over 40% without the need for additional headcount in the pre-sales team, which is amazing. So, and this transformation of the pre-sales function, more importantly, has put the customer at the heart of the sales process, really just ensuring that the customer's goals and objectives are realized. So, without further ado, I'm going to turn the time over to Adam. Adam, thanks for being here.
Perfect. Thank you so much, John. So you can just let me know that you can see my screen. Let me just share my screen over here. Steal permission back from you here. Cool. So you should be able to see my slide deck.
Got
now.
it.
Perfect. Fantastic.
Yep.
So minimize you there. So welcome everyone. Thanks for the great introduction, and thank you for having me. I'm very, very proud to be able to tell our story of Access. I'm a very, very proud pre-sales leader. I've got a fantastic team, and I'm very, very privileged to lead at a company where the sales team is so agile and is really, actually, it's one of the big components in what I'm going to talk today about how you ramp implementation is about the culture as well. So really, really excited to kind of tell our story today, hopefully help a few people. Maybe you're on the call and you're going to be in a number of camps. Okay, you might be the person that's signed the checks and you are a decision maker of bringing consensus into your organization. Maybe you're the person in charge of rolling that out, or one of the key stakeholders in rolling that out, and one of the leaders in that area. Or maybe you're a user as well. And I think at all levels there should be something for everyone in this context today. I will be talking from my perspective. I was the internal champion, so I brought consensus to the table. I created the ROI. Ultimately, I wasn't putting pen on paper, but I was the guy that went and asked the right people to put pen on paper. So if that gives you some context, I'll give you a little bit more flavor about who I am and what Access are a little bit later. So let's start. And anyone that knows me will know that I'm a very, very passionate person, but I also absolutely love an acronym and a story. So I'm going to start with my Peloton. Okay, anyone that's not familiar, Peloton is a spin bike, and it was one of my lockdown pandemic purchases. And for anyone not familiar, this screen at the top here, this area is kind of your spin class. And you cycle along with thousands of people around the world, and the harder you pedal and the faster you go at the higher resistance, the more effort you put in, the more output you get, and that output ranks you on a leaderboard. And you might say, well, what's that got to do with consensus? And I say, well, it's got everything. It runs in parallel. A, I bought the two things at the same time, and B, they've both been fundamentally vital to me to get through this lockdown period in the shape that we are now. And the reason is, as I went into lockdown, I'll be honest, my love of pizza grew at the same rate as my waistline. And I looked down at my feet one day and I thought, well, either my feet are shrinking, or my waistline's expanding, but I need to do something about that. I need the results. And the results I needed were that I needed to get back in shape. I needed to, the negativity around the world, I needed to get back to doing what I do best. And I'm quite an active guy. So I needed a way that when I was in lockdown, I can't go to the gym. I needed a way of that exercise, of getting that into my life. And you might say, well, yeah, Peloton's not the only thing, okay? You could have brought a rowing machine. I could have brought a treadmill. Why did you end up with Peloton? I always say, well, the reason I did that was I had a vision, okay? My vision was I wanted to get in shape, okay? Peloton really was the strategy. It was the vehicle to move me from my vision to my results. My results were that I wanted to get in shape. But what I had a very, very clear idea on was that I needed a vision to do something about it. I needed the results to get in shape. I just needed something in the middle that helped me get there. And that's exactly what Consensus has brought to the table before I start. Exactly the same. You put your effort in at first, you know that you want to get to that digital transformation, you understand where you are now, you recognize that you need to do something about it, and Consensus is your vehicle to get there in exactly the same way as my Peloton bike was for me to get back in shape as well. The other familiar trait, and the trait that's shared between these two, Consensus and Peloton, is that at first, when I first got my bike, I jumped on the bike, I pedaled hard, I pedaled really hard because I'm a very competitive person. I wanted to get up that leaderboard, and I was sweaty, I was hot, it was hard work, but every day I aimed to have the intention of just getting that little bit better, that little bit fitter. I knew I had a goal in mind, but I knew I had to take steps to get there. And that's exactly what we did with Consensus as well. I knew we wanted this transformation of pre-sales to support the customer and put the customer at the very center of everything we did. But what I couldn't do was jump to that extreme. I needed to take steps and get better every day through our process to achieve it. And what you're going to see today is exactly that story. It's a very honest, it's very candid. I will tell you what worked very well for us. And I tell you, if I look back, there are certain things I would probably do a little bit different. And that's what this story is about today. Anyone that watched Tony Franchetic's session yesterday, there's a lot of commonality between it. I watched Tony's fantastic session. I know Tony well, and he's a great presenter. So I hope I can put my presentation into that camp as well. But enough about the spin bike. So a little bit of a spoiler alert, okay? This went really well, okay? Because let's be honest, Consensus aren't going to come and ask me to talk to you if it didn't go very well. So let's get the obvious out the way first. So just some dates for you. So we actually took a pilot license 1st of February 2020. At that point, coronavirus and all the challenges we've had this year, they were something that was happening over in the Far East, okay? It wasn't massively high on the radar as recently as February 2020. But we took the pilot license. I knew we needed to do something. I started talking to the guys in 2019. We trialed some stuff, and then 1st of February, we really was our date when we took that pilot license. We decided we need to do something about this. So we took a pilot license, a small number. I issued them to a variety of salespeople. And then to put it into context, by the 1st of April, obviously, COVID hit, the pandemic hit, we had to fundamentally change the way we sold, and it felt like we had to do that overnight. We had what I call a go big or go home date, which was we committed to this way of selling, we committed to this approach, we put some effort in and we accelerate it, or we have to find another way because the world had changed around us. And I think that's probably slightly different to maybe other people on this call, was the dates really actually helped with our rollout. If you look at it, it was incredibly time pressure, it was incredibly pressured time, but it accelerated our adoption as well. And that's an important factor in this. So just some high level stats. We influenced about £1.6 million worth of recurring revenue in that first 3 months. And I'm talking from April to the month end after our go big or go home date. That's a very conservative estimate. I will say that I do believe that figure was more. I am aware of at least at least 5 or 6 figure deals that were brought in that period with Consensus. And we were new to the platform. We were new to this idea as well, don't forget. And I'm aware of one deal particularly stands out in my head. It was a £10,000 deal. We brought Consensus in, and we just did a meeting follow-up to a live demonstration that one of my pre-sales guys gave, because the pre-sales person had the foresight to go, I'm just going to send this demo, just a create your own demo, and it had a little bit more tech from our tech stack in it. And the customer came back straight away, watched it, lots of analytics. And the customer said, I did not know you did that. I didn't even know that. We've actually got lines in our budget for that. What can we do if we bundle that into this deal? Within 7 days, that deal turned from a £10,000 recurring revenue deal to £105,000 in 7 days. I don't think we've had anything in the business that's delivered that kind of transformation. And it is true, you can do it. You just have to have the right content. So decent stats to return. The other thing we noticed, the trend was that we were getting these shorter sales cycles. Now, yes, that's partly because everyone went to work remote. I appreciate that. But actually, us being able to put video in front of people to work out who was interested, who wasn't, where we should spend our time, and the salespeople being able to channel their energy in the right areas and, talk to the people who were naturally interested at the right time. It not only gave a better customer experience, but it did reduce the sales cycle because we could focus our efforts much better. And we saw typically anywhere between 20 and 50% shorter sales cycles on the deals that were influenced by Consensus. And the last bit, and one of the bits I'm really, really proud of from a pre-sales leader perspective, we rolled out to 400 end users in 3 days. Okay, it was actually, to put it into context, 3 half days. And when I spoke to Alex and John about this was one of the things that really took them back. What we did was we used Consensus to do the rollout. We used the tool to drive the adoption. We did digital onboarding because we didn't have the bandwidth in our pre-sales team because we're in hyper growth mode, right? We're growing 40% year on year. I've got a busy pre-sales team. I don't have the spare resource to be able to go and do a manual rollout of this. So we had to use the tool. And what that did was that forced the salespeople getting the license to be an end user, to feel what it was like to use Consensus as a platform. And that was probably one of the best decisions we made, was to go with a digital rollout, to use Consensus in an expedited time frame. I knew not every single person was going to use the platform from day one, but what I could do was give an instant shot in the arm, that instant boost. Going back to the Peloton, when I jumped on the bike and pedaled really hard on the first day, that was our day one on the bike. That was when we went in and we went hard, and then we dealt with the small steps thereafter. So that's our story in a nutshell of the early days. And the reason why it worked very well for us and why we got those good results, and I'm a big builder in buyer enablement. I know Garin, who obviously is CEO at Consensus, has literally written the book on this, and it's a superb book if you haven't read it. But buyer enablement is when everything just comes together, okay? And if you think of your 3 parties in any particular deal, you've got your customer, you've got your pre-sales person, and you've got your salesperson. And really what you're after is nirvana right in the middle there. A lot of deals that maybe you don't win are because they kind of fall into one of these areas over here. So they'll fall into where you've got customer and the sales team aligned, but there isn't a technical fit. Maybe you'll have a technical fit, but you won't have a commercial fit. Or maybe you'll have something that the salespeople are happy to put forward that's a technical fit, but the customer doesn't see value in. What Consensus gave us was all of the different deals that sat in that area in the middle there. And that was what was critical. It allowed us to understand where people saw value and where they didn't. And we had better quality customer-centric conversations. A buyer that is educated and enabled is a great buyer, in my opinion. That is why the sales cycles are quicker. And that's why we got the results we did, because we put really honest, genuine content in there, as advised by the guys at Consensus. I was reluctant to do it. I thought, are we going to have to get professional content? We went with authentic pre-sales content, and it worked. It definitely worked for us, and it continues to do to this day. So I thought that was a very useful graphic just to show you kind of my mindset on that. Just a little bit about us, just to put it into context, just so depending on your own company, you can kind of see where you fit in the spectrum here. So my background, I'm from an accountancy background. I'm very comfortable with analysing numbers. That definitely helped with Consensus. I understand ROIs and I understand those kind of investment decisions. But the other side of it is I'm an absolute geek at heart. I love technology. I love being on the the bleeding edge of what's new, and the digital transformation of pre-sales just came with that. But the biggest thing that works in my favor is that bottom line there. My team are absolutely fantastic. I am unbelievably proud of my team. They are a superb bunch of people without exception, and without any question, they took my vision, which was this digital pre-sales transformation. They didn't worry it's going to replace me. They didn't worry about all those things. They just rolled their sleeves up and create great content. And for that, we're eternally blessed. So, if you're on this call and you're in pre-sales capacity, what I would say is, if you've got the ability to create great content, just chip in, just roll the sleeves up, create some content. You never know when it'll be useful or how useful it is to maybe a newer salesperson that just hasn't got that deep industry experience. What I'd also say is, within our pre-sales team, we have an awful lot of industry specialists and maybe not as many generalists, which again play to our advantage in this, because we could offer deep industry insights, not just on the product, but it was literally, so for the salespeople, it was like having an industry expert, an industry advocate in their pocket at all times, which allowed us to get our message and our communication and put the customer and communicate value to that customer on virtually every single deal. So deals where we may have typically not have been involved from a pre-sales capacity before, actually just sending that video and it came from us, actually helped the deals. So that's why we've seen the shorter sales cycles as well. And a little bit about Access. I've been at Access 9.5 years now. I joined as a junior consultant. I literally joined the day after my last professional accountancy qualification. I knew I needed to get out of accountancy and I wanted to get into software. And Access as business is probably its fifth, sixth iteration of a company. It's like I've joined 6 different companies throughout 9.5 years. The transformation has been phenomenal. And that's really powered by a lot of acquisitions, some great acquisitions, very, very strong organic growth. And if you put those two things together, that's most pre-sales leaders' worst nightmare. You've got a lot of new technology coming to the business. You've got a lot of new customers and opportunities to service. We've got a very high pre-sales to sales ratio, sales to pre-sales ratio the other way, and a lot of products that need supporting. And so when you put all those things together, for, like John said at the start, for us to grow without the headcount is absolutely testament. And I do put a lot of that down to our ability to get the most out of Consensus. And so what I want to do is, you've obviously seen those great results and that kind of 1.6 million of order intake influence. And I thought, well, how did we arrive there? If we laid this on a timeline, what were our key decisions? What did we do at those various steps? And what were our milestones? Just to maybe give you some ideas, because it was an incredibly expedited process. Had COVID not hit, would we have expedited as fast? I don't think I'll ever know. I would have wanted to, but I think the COVID situation definitely helped the other stakeholders realize we've got to do something and added some immediacy to the issue. So obviously we took our pilot license 1st of February. By the 1st of April, we were faced with a mass rollout. So that pilot phase had been compressed. We had seen ROI. We knew it was something we wanted to do. The COVID situation probably helped us roll out slightly bigger than we were going to on the 1st of April. That was the main difference there. If we fast forward to the 30th of June 2020, which was our financial year end, actually, that's where we do. What we did was we'd had essentially April, May, June's usage of Consensus. And what we did at that point was, that was our ROI and recalibration date. And I call recalibration was, I have all these grand ideas of how it's going to influence metrics. Actually, where did we get to? Because we may have been successful and still missed our goals. That's absolutely fine. But you've always got to recalibrate and always go back and continually recalculate ROI. That keeps you on your toes. It keeps you fresh. 1st of August, we made the decision, and again, a bold decision during a global pandemic, to increase our user licenses. And the reason we did that, we'd seen results. We had heard from the customers that they enjoyed using the technology. It helped their buying experience. The salespeople, it gave them the material they needed, and we didn't have the bottlenecks of diaries and things. So we decided we needed more licenses. And so that was testament, to move from a pilot license in February to increasing our user count by the 1st of August was only testament to how we worked with the Consensus team. And then, as recently as the 1st of November, we've just embarked on, we're not even a year into our usage, and we've now embarked on re-evaluating best practice. We've kind of rewritten the rule book in an agile way this year, but what we need to now do is go back to our journey, and we need to look at going, okay, well, what's working really well? How can we boil that down, get that nectar and put that into more deals? And that's just going to be a continual process from here on in. But that's where we are. And if we look at what we did in between each of those steps to allow us to progress to the next gating process, Between the pilot phase, what we really did was experiment with content. We had a lot of different content in different platforms, maybe some on YouTube, some on Vimeo, some on people's hard drives, and then, you know, in Dropbox and online storage. And so what we needed to do was get that content together, figure out what we had. What we then had to do was, because I've got a lot of industry experts in the pre-sales team, they're not content creators, you know, they're not videographers, they've not created this digital content in the majority. And so I was asking them to upskill in a new area, try putting their webcams on and recording themselves. For a lot of people, that was uncomfortable. So we had to upskill, and that allowed us to move to that 1st of April date because we had the content was being used. If we didn't have content, we were never going to be able to move forward because we would have had nothing to send out. So that was the key thing that we did there. And what we did between the 1st of April and our year end, which was where we calculate that ROI, really was, we knew we had great content. What we did very, very well there was get our onboarding processes absolutely great. We got our reporting cadences right, to the right people. We basically embedded Consensus in an expedited timeframe into the DNA of our sales team. That was what we did. The better salespeople were using it naturally. Some people who'd maybe been at the company a while, like you say, oh, I've hit my quota every year without this, why do I need it? Some people, it was an alien technology and we had to spend a little bit more time with, but without exception, we're very lucky. We've got an incredibly agile sales team who've embraced this technology, and that has helped. That definitely helped in that phase there. So between the 30th of June and the 1st of August, obviously, you know, and all this time, you know, outside of the IT world, it was a challenging time for a lot of our customers. It was a challenging time for a lot of our staff. It was a challenging time for the economy on a whole, right? So you've got to layer all of these individual tasks onto a very challenging time across the world. But what we did in that stage very well was we started to work with the sales leaders to drive the adoption. And my thinking there was, well, if I've got 50–60% of all the licenses I've issued out that are actively using the software, that's great. I'm getting the returns. I was already getting an ROI. But I was kind of saying, well, okay, imagine we're at 50–60%. What if we were at 75%, 80% adoption? By doing that 50%, by capping yourself on your adoption rates, what you're really doing is capping your potential ROI. We were never going to realize the full potential unless we drove adoption. And so that's what we did. What we did was we drove adoption with the sales team, with the various departments using Consensus. And what we did for the pre-sales team was we incentivized digital content creation. I have probably a whole different webinar session at some point, but I have a reward and recognition gamification scheme for our pre-sales team. They accrue points based on what they do. And what we did was we actually valued digital content creation higher than a customer-facing demo for the first time. And what that did was that drove some fantastic content in a short period of time. And it almost, in my eyes, at that period actually took us to version 2 of where we were at with Consensus. We'd learned, we'd gone through our trial and error phase. We then started to optimize. That's important. And what we did in the last stage was then it was just about building on everything we'd done. We ran a lot of internal webinars, internal education. We did start to get into customer specific content. We had the bandwidth because we'd gone over that tipping point of, I've got a busy pre-sales team who are just making content around what they're doing, to being actually, suddenly, Adam, we've got a bit of bandwidth because the low-lying simple demos are automated now. Actually, I can go and I can upskill and I can create new content. And that was where we start to see the value, the payback onto the pre-sales team. So that was what we did very well in between those dates. And hopefully you can take some ideas from that. And I kind of think, well, we got those results and we did those steps naturally. But if I think back, what were the 3 things we did really, really well? What allowed us to get that success? And if I was looking back, what would I do slightly differently as well? So some of these tips are things we did and some are things that I would do slightly differently as well. But the 3 things I think you should always consider, and this isn't just Consensus, it's any project, but we did particularly well for Consensus, was we defined a vision. We knew what we wanted to get to. We knew we wanted customer-centric sales and demonstration experiences. We wanted to be able it to be easy for the salespeople to get content to people, and we didn't want pre-sales as a bottleneck. We also wanted to reduce the cost of sale by supporting that business growth in the best way we possibly could. We needed a great strategy, and that strategy had to support the overall goals and aims of what we were trying to do, and that was by defining great results. So they were my 3 building blocks of success, and I would do this for any project I was doing, be it Consensus or another project we were looking to do. Define the vision, get the strategy correct, and use the strategy as a bridge to get from my vision to my results. Going back to the Peloton experience, exactly the same. I knew I needed to lose weight. That was my results. I knew that I needed something at home and I needed something because of the pandemic. My strategy was buy the Peloton and aim to use it and build it into my working day. That was the strategy. That's exactly what we needed for Consensus. So if we go into the vision just a little bit here, there were kind of 5 things we really needed to do to build a good vision, and things that we did well and things I would absolutely do again. The first thing was the sales cycle impact. We understood very, very clearly, as much as we could in the early stages, how we were going to change the sales cycle. So what deal size was be worked on? Where were we going to use it differently on larger deals versus smaller deals? We obviously have, an account management inside sales function versus new biz and those kind of functions. Actually, how were we going to tailor the sales cycle to those individual functions, as well as business development and even marketing as well? And also, how would it impact? What was the optimal process if you overlay physical pre-sales and mix that into digital pre-sales as well? What was the handshake between the two teams? How were we going to use the data as well? And that's where we got to the understanding the benefits by function. And if you understand the benefits by function, it's very, very easy to get that stakeholder engagement, which is the last step. I think the one thing I would do probably slightly better than I did the first time was I would probably network within the Consensus user base more. I think I'd probably try and understand the art of the possible more. I had an idea, I had my vision, but sometimes just thinking out loud with other users is a great experience. If you're on this call and you're a salesperson, chat to other salespeople at different companies who use Consensus, get some outside-in perspective on the art of the possible. I think the thing we did do very, very well, and we did this through the pilot as well, was considering that customer journey. I'm a big fan of these customer-centric models and the push towards that. I've implemented the software, and so putting the customer at the heart of everything we do has only got to be a great thing. And that's something we do at Access very, very well. What I would say is I took the bold decision that when we were piloting it, I actually contacted a few of the customers that had experienced this new way of selling. I said, hey, this is new to us. How did you find that? As a customer, what did it feel like? Did you miss the human interaction? And what we got was a really balanced analysis. They were kind of saying, this is great because it's on-demand demos. I can watch this after I put the kids to bed, and, or I could watch it first thing in the morning because I'm an early riser, Adam, and I can't expect you guys to do a demo at 5:30 in the morning. It fit around people's diaries. And for us, that also worked because of the pandemic, because people's days were changing. They were jumping from Teams call to Zoom call to Blue Jeans call, and they didn't have that natural, I'm in the office, contact between 9 and 11, I'll make time for you. It had to fit around certain things, and different stakeholders had different times they were available. So that's very, very important in the vision. That's something I would change my vision on and build it a little bit more around as well. But the final bit is the key stakeholder engagement. Absolutely critical. Just because my vision was how it was going to work, and I had absolutely bought into my vision, of course. What I needed to do was get our CSO. I needed to get our various stakeholders around the business that were going to sign the check. I needed to get them to believe in my vision and make it a shared vision. So it's having the right conversations with the right people, taking the feedback, and go into this with a collective vision. That's my main bit of advice. So if we just go into the strategy here as well, okay, how did we move from vision towards results? What was that next stage? So obviously, you sign on the dotted line and you take consensus. That's the first bit. But I think what we did very well was we had purpose and direction, because we had a great vision. We went into the Consensus project as the pilot, knowing exactly what we were trying to achieve. There were some unknowns, there's the whole, there's known knowns, known unknowns, and unknown unknowns. We had to deal with that. We had to deal with the fact there were certain things we didn't know how customers were going to react. Was there a certain segment of the customer base that wasn't going to react? We had to figure those things out on the fly. But all I could really do was counter and put things in place for the things we knew about. And they always say, somebody that knows where they're going is somebody that doesn't get lost. And that's very, very true with this kind of project. I would also say plan your resources and capabilities. What we definitely did was we understood who was very strong at video production, who wasn't, who was very, very busy in terms of diary. Can we put slots in per week to maybe move that demo that's in person? Can we move it to a video production session? So rather than spending 2 1-hour slots with 2 different customers, actually, can we take a short-term hit on that, move those out, and use that 2-hour gap to produce some video content, because we can use that iteratively over and over again. I definitely underplayed this part, and we kind of realized this as we moved into the main phase, was make sure you have a training plan and an upskilling plan to get the right content creation in place. You know, if you're in pre-sales or if you're in sales and you're using Consensus Snap, and you're not used to being in front of the camera, and you're not used to producing content like a lot of people on this session will be, actually that's a real skill. To create a very concise PowerPoint deck that you're talking around is a different skill for some people. So make sure you have a good training plan and an upskilling, and test people as well. Don't be afraid to put a certification process in. Ask end users to come back to you with a test video and make sure everyone's okay. Collaborate with Consensus, absolutely critical. I had a great relationship with John on the call, who's kind of hosting this call, with Alex and Rex. And without doubt, I've always found someone who's there to help me. Really, really lovely vendor to deal with. Kind of sets the bar very, very high. I can't talk about those guys well enough, and really supported us as we rolled out. I think if you don't make use of that collaboration, again, you're only going to limit your results. And it's been bold enough to take feedback. I mean, I would send content over to the guys, even with the time difference, say, hey, have a look, see what you think. And they would tell us, you know, maybe reduce the volume of your background music, maybe put some background music here, little fine tuning points that really give you good results. And the last thing, the thing that we did really, really well, and it's something we do all the time at Access, it's in our company's DNA, is aggressive timescales. We needed to move at pace here. You know, the world was changing around us. We're a growing company. I had to set aggressive timescales. On the face of it, you'd be like, it's a great plan, but these timescales are going to be hard to hit. I love an aggressive timescale. I think it adds immediacy, and I think it helps you generate ROI. And even if you just miss out on your results, you're going to get somewhere, and you're going to get further than you would without an aggressive timescale. The final bit, and I probably underappreciate it, content is absolutely is king. Great content, authentic content that's produced in-house, that you can turn around rapidly, that doesn't have to go to a design agency and come back, getting your salespeople confident to create their own content with Consensus Snap, all those things, absolutely critical. When we did the onboarding, I was kind of like, yeah, that's fine. I completely would reiterate that. That was something we did really, really well after we'd maybe made a couple of mistakes with the content, but authentic content trumps professional content in terms of view rates every single time. Cool. So then the results, and this is the fun bit, right? Because if you've got the vision right and you've got the strategy right, the results just have to come. They just can't not. And if you don't get the results, it's because those first two steps probably weren't correct. Or it's something outside of your control, which you've just got to take on the chin and learn from, right? But you know, the results went our way. We'd set ourselves up to a point where I knew we weren't going to fail. The question was, how much are we going to succeed by? And that's a lovely position to be in. The main thing that we do with the results is making sure your reporting cadence, your lines of reporting, that the people that need the data, when they need it, who wants it, when, in what format, make sure all those things are there. Monitor and drive that adoption. So just making sure that the users are aware that actually, I need you to try this. If it's not part of your sales process, I could really do with you at least, you know, having a go at this. Make it feels uncomfortable, yes, but do you know what? People are getting results, so I need you to try this. Driving that adoption and doing it by team, by function, you know, getting the sales leaders or your marketing leaders involved with you to help drive that adoption. That's something that we're really starting to do now, which is make it a shared mission. Sharing best practice and internal communications. Again, something that we've done as a business over lockdown is we have kind of 2 weekly slots that are half an hour each, where people in the business come and share ideas. And it could be, you know, use of CRM, it could be innovative self-generation ideas, things like that. But one of the slots that we've done to great effect now and again is do a consensus best practice. So we get users who are having, you know, not myself necessarily, users who've had great experience and great results come on and present to the rest of the sales team. That's 200, 300 people now, and they present on what they did well and what they've learned. And so that kind of dispersing and that kind of building of best practice and sharing it is something you really need to do through your internal communications. For me, it was becoming data obsessed. That came naturally to me because of my accountancy background, but really understanding how are we moving the needle? You know, what impact are we having? What's the impact by deal size, by products, by area, by even who's created the content. Have we got pockets of excellence that we can learn from? Have we got pockets where we're not hitting our objectives because of those reporting lines that we need to work on as well? So it's just having that holistic view of exactly what's going on across your data. And you do have to be data obsessed. I would literally sit there churning over data and understanding analytics and trying things and giving people challenges just to figure out if stuff worked. And that's why we've expedited our rollout. That's something we did super, super well. The final bit, and this all comes down to your culture, right, is celebrating success. I think it's so, so important that when you do get any modicum of success, I remember the very, very first deal we influenced and we sold Consensus was something like a £2,000, £1,800 deal. It was relatively small in the scheme of things. But for me, that was probably the deal and the moment I celebrated more than that £100,000 deal, because that was the first time we'd realized any of the vision that I'd set previously. That was the moment I knew this was going to work. You know, anybody that's on this call, watching this recording, that made that decision, that went to their CSO, went to their board and said, hey, I want you to put some money behind this and we've got to go do this. And they've been trusted to go, yeah, okay, I'm backing your vision. I'm going to share this. We're going to go do it. That weight when you sign that DocuSign to say, hey, we're taking Consensus on, is like a boulder on your shoulders. Doesn't matter what the investment decision is. You carry that boulder and every single deal and every bit of success that you recognize just chips away at that boulder to the point that you can stand up tall and comfortably and be proud of what you've done. Until that happens, you're just carrying this boulder around on your back. And that's why it's so important to celebrate success. It's important to celebrate no matter how big the success, to shout about it, to learn from it. And when you've had success, say, well, what could we do to repeat that? What makes it repeatable? What bakes it into our best practice? But also, what could we have done to make that even more successful? That's the kind of approach you need to take to get great results. So if I was to give you some top tips, and don't worry, you're coming to the end of my dulcet northern tones now, but when we start to look back at what we did, what tips would I give me on a molecular level, on a granular level, on a doing level? What tips would I give me if I was doing this again? Definitely digital sales playbooks. They've come into our learning actually only recently. Is, you know, we've got all this great content. We've got so much content there now. People actually need to know what they want to send at what point in the sales cycle. And so what we've started to do is overlay our sales process with which video to send at which point in the sales cycle. Just really, really helps make it easy. If maybe you're not familiar with a new product where we've had new acquisitions, just to make it nice and easy for the salespeople to get the right content to the right people at the right time. That's been a great advice. And actually, Consensus gave us a little bit of a template that we adapted a lot internally to do that as well. I would definitely upskill on video content creation and your digital assets, getting your digital assets in place. So I kind of figured out after the event, right, I need to go to marketing and get a suite of, you know, royalty-free music we can use. I didn't understand all that word before we started. Getting your buffers and your intro so it looks quite professional, but the content is authentic. And it's getting that balance of, actually, it's not just someone who's pressed record on their laptop. It has actually had a little bit of production, but it's still authentic. It's still got the it's natural to listen to. It's somebody that, like one of the customers said, this guy presenting to me now when it's in person is the guy from the video. That's the kind of authenticity you want. There's instant credibility when the pre-sales person walks into the room. So upskilling on video creation and having your pre-sales or your sales team do the content and be confident enough to do it is huge. Getting a shared purpose and goals. Make sure that it's not just your vision. If you're on this call and you're in sales, or you're in pre-sales, or you're at a, you know, director level or a senior stakeholder, your vision will be different. But maybe sharing each other's purpose, get a shared goal, and really charge out together as a combined unit, because that makes it unbreakable. It means you are going to succeed. That shared purpose and goals is so vital in getting things right. Create those regular reporting. One of the best things we did was we decided that we weren't going to take data, we weren't going to put it into PowerPoint or Google Docs or anywhere. We were going to use Demolytics. And what that gave us instantly was credibility over our reporting, because if we're taking it out of Demolytics straight out of Consensus, how can we possibly have massaged or manipulated the figures? They've got to just be correct. So whether we like those results or not, that's the truth of the situation. And I think that transparent reporting that's readily available, that's instantly recognizable, and getting it baked into your reporting is absolutely vital, so that you can really understand where you are and do something about it. If those numbers aren't what you want to see, good, do something about it. If they are what you want to see, great, go and make them even bigger. But whatever end of the spectrum you're at, you're going to have a successful experience from using the Demolytics. And always, always, always recalibrate, you know, continually through this cycle. I've sat and I'll sometimes sit, and it might be later at night once my little boy has gone to bed and I can actually think straight. I will constantly, I'll look at Demolytics and I'll just sit back in my chair and I'll just look at the figures that are on screen, and I'll start to try and pick patterns or pick somewhere where I can drill into and understand what we're doing. And that's how you get that continual improvement mindset into this project. You have to, whether you've been a Consensus user for years or for days, you always have to recalibrate and continually improve. It's absolutely critical. And they would be my top 5 tips. That's what I would do again on a molecular level to make sure you get the results. So with that said, hopefully it's not been too dull for you. I'll open the floor to any questions, any comments. I'd thank you for your time and for allowing me to present to you today.
Fantastic. Thanks, Adam. We've got some good questions that I'm queuing up for you. I may, just to sort of impose a little bit of pattern and sequence on them, I may just switch them up a little bit, but I'm going to try and get to everybody's questions as I can. So the first one, I'm actually going to reverse the order of it a little bit. Can you give us a little bit of context for how many demo creators you have?
Okay, so we have 10. Believe it or not. So we've actually increased that to 20. So when we first took on the pilot license, we had 2. And then what we did was we rolled that up to 10, and then we scaled up to 20. So in the pre-sales team, that's the bulk of what we would call the specialists, the people that really have deep product knowledge. The more generalists aren't content creators. The real deep product and industry experience are the people, and we keep the content creator licenses within pre-sales as well.
Fantastic. Okay, so the follow-on question to that, with so many content creators, how do you maintain consistency in demo style and CTAs between your demo creators?
Really good point. And I think, you know, I toyed with this of actually, do I need to review every video that comes through? And what we did was there's 2 schools of thought on this, right? I trust my pre-sales to go out every day to every engagement and every opportunity and present in their best light. So why wouldn't I trust them to press record on their webcam? So that's the first thing. I absolutely trust that they will produce great content. But what I did do was I will sample check videos. I'll pick a video out the library. I'll typically do a couple a day at some point during the day, just between meetings. I'll pick a video, I'll play it, and I'll just look at what the quality's like, and I'll sort it by date created, and I'll just see what's been added in the last couple of days. Does that mean things slip through the net? Yeah, of course it would. But do we evaluate every single web meeting that every single person holds? No. It just means that I've now got a way of seeing if that content isn't quite at the level I want to. And again, I'm looking for trends. I'm continually evaluating. What I would say is to ensure some level of consistency, we pushed out a Consensus Snap settings guide, which ensured logo, fave icon, colors. It provided for the content creators the buffer, intro and outro, the music file. So it's only one of 4 music files. So, you know, you have freedom to use the right one. And they're all slightly different, but then there's a common feel to the content. We also gave style guides on, okay, if this is an intro or an early stage of the sales funnel cycle, we want to try and keep the content 4 minutes or lower if we can. So there's a similar length to the video. There's a similar intro, outro. There's a similar style. Yes, the voices are different. Yes, the presentation style is sometimes different, but that's okay.
Fantastic. Can you all see why this was like so successful? Like the level of specificity is just fantastic. So some more questions that are coming. So real quick, that you mentioned that initial revenue, or the 1.6 million pound revenue mark. How big was the team that was involved in that, just for some context?
What was that? So in terms of active users for that, I'd have to double check. You're talking about 100 odd users probably that between them generate that. So might have been slightly higher because it crossed over as we started to roll out. So that was that was in a 3-month window from April to the end of June, to our year end. So that was when I took a snapshot of our CRM data and mixed it with the consensus data to get an influenced value. Now, you're never going to know if a pound of that 1.6 million was directly influenced or if it just happened to have videos as well.
Sure.
All I know is that it had some part to play. And deals where there had been a video, but there'd been maybe only a few seconds watched, where the customer had opened it but closed it, we actually discounted those. We said they're not as influenced against that number. So I think the true number is higher. But if I'm doing ROIs, I'm always doing it on that worst case scenario from my perspective, just because that gives you the truest picture you possibly can, and no one can blow holes in your ROI then. They can only inflate it. But yeah, in terms of the sales team now, I mean, our total sales team quota carrying is around 350 to 400, to put it into context. We have 500 user licenses, so that gives you an idea of where we're at now. At the point we did the 1.6 million of influenced, we would have been about half that. So we would have been in the 180 to 220 range of licenses issued.
Fantastic. Thanks for that insight. How did you use Consensus to onboard? Can you give some insight into that?
Absolutely. So I sat up until about 3 a.m. one day when I figured out we were going to roll out en masse. I'm not going to lie and tell you it was easy. It wasn't. I wasn't a very good husband, and I wasn't a very good dad for a few weeks, because I knew it gave me bandwidth later, right? And I just had to get it done. You just got to roll your sleeves up and do it. So what I did was I sat at my laptop. Everyone had gone to bed. The house was lovely and quiet, apart from the dog snoring. And what I basically did was I just recorded my screen, me creating little vignettes. So what I did was how do I do my consensus snap settings? How do I alter those? And I made it specific for us. So I set my colors, I put my logos in. I did that as one particular chapter. So where you do the create your own demos, where you have the demo menu and you choose interested, somewhat interested or not, I used exactly that. So anyone can go back to it anytime and watch one particular snippet. I did consensus snap. I did the onboarding settings that we needed to do. I did how you upload your own content. I did how you create demo boards, and then I did how you should send them out. So there was kind of 5 or 6 chapters. And I just broke them into 4 or 5 minute long snippets for each one, and people would go and watch them. And what I did was, as we issue a license out, we put the new user into consensus, and we automatically we generate the onboarding content as a tracked demo board, so we can see if that user, if we go and see one of their videos, and we'll always go and look at one of their videos soon after they get the license. If we can see the colors aren't right, the logos aren't right, if we're not happy with the quality, we can either retract the license but we can reach out and do something about it. And that ensures the quality and the consistency across the company. You just got to do the hard yards at first, because you know that once it's business as usual, it's going to make your life so much easier.
Love it. Fantastic. Question comes in from Bob. Which type, single, standard, or et cetera, of demos have proven the most successful? Any learnings across the return on creation time for the different styles?
Yeah. So for us, I mean, single videos work really, really well. I believe they accelerate a deal the most, if you were to ask me. And I think the reason for that is it's just so simple for the user. They click and play, and it's nice and easy. And we're used to that in that YouTube world. The lovely thing is it gives us the tracking as well. I think what's worked very well, if you look at our marketing and our early stage funnel, is that kind of, the advanced demo of going to a customer and where you've got a product that goes into multiple industries. So we've got this in our care sector, for example, where you'll have residential care, so like a care home, people who are home givers in the community, and mixed caregivers who do a combination of both. There's kind of 3 categories of care provider. And what we do is, on the advanced demo, is we ask that customer, where do you think you fit? They get the same demonstration at the end, but the advanced demo gives us an opportunity through the customer's eyes to tell us, do they think they're domiciliary, home care, or mixed care service provider? So when we go to talk to them, we're talking in their language, because in those 3 scenarios, they will use different vernacular, internally, and call things differently. It's the same product, it's just slightly different. So as we get to the, in-person demonstration, we already know, because the users told us through an advanced demo, whether they see themselves, and that's the important bit, whether they see themselves as residential, home care provider, or mixed. So we're using the different types of demos in different ways, actually.
So cool. Fantastic. I apologize, everybody. We're not going to be able to get to all the questions in this session, but that always seems to be the way. If you want to reach out, we can try and connect you with Adam.
Yeah,
Reach out to your CSM, and Adam's always really great about answering questions.
absolutely. And obviously, if people want to network me on LinkedIn, drop me a message on LinkedIn. You know, I'm more than happy to help anybody. You know, whoever needs help, and if they're prepared to listen to my dulcet northern tones, then I'm more than happy to talk.
Seriously, do that. It's the smart play. Connect with Adam on LinkedIn. So Adam, thanks again
No
for being
problem.
with us. I'm going to go ahead and just give a quick glimpse of the next sessions that we've got coming up. So over here, we've got Alex is going to be talking about 6 ways to speed up sending demo boards in your workflow. Most of you are going to know Alex. He's head of client success here at Consensus. And also Derek, who's another one of our CSMs, is going to talk about becoming a screen recording pro and how simple, quick post edits can improve engagement. So don't miss those. Thanks everybody for coming, and we'll see you in the next session.
See ya.
Take care all.